Hello, I'm Sharon and this is Hooked on Books. Now about a year ago I did the 5-star prediction video and I realised a year on, oh, I still haven't read those books. If I thought I was going to love them so much, how come I haven't read them? Beats me. Anyway, I have now since read them and I'm going to talk to you about them. I'm going to talk about the books individually first and then I'm going to come up with my ratings at the end, probably just have a little bit of a commentary on the rating system in general. First up, we've got The Name of the Wind, which is part of a fantasy trilogy, the third of which has not come out yet. Probably will it ever, I don't know. And I should have watched my first 5-star prediction video again to remind myself of exactly why I picked these all, but I'm just kind of going off on my memory. But I believe I picked this up purely because it was popular. And I don't read a huge amount of fantasy, so going by popularity is sometimes quite helpful for me. And it's popular in terms of the fact that it goes through my till a lot in work, and it's popular on BookTube, and there's a lot of booktubers out there that I respect quite a lot who seem to really love it, so I felt quite confident that it would probably be quite good. Had I not seen other people talk about it in such a positive way, had I not seen it be so popular in the shop that I work in, this probably would have never ever ever appealed to me. I don't like the cover. I don't like the size of it. It's huge. I'm a novella girl. So if I hadn't heard such good reviews of it, I probably never ever would have picked it up. Now, in many ways for me, this was just kind of a generic fantasy book about this guy who has this sort of traumatic event in his life that then leads him on this journey that he, you know, he's Mr. Perfect and gets through every difficult situation really easily, and there's women that are kind of a little bit two-dimensional and blah, okay? Having said all that, I fucking loved it. I absolutely tore through this. I thought the writing in this was spectacular. I absolutely loved the descriptive language. So having that kind of literary language combined with a fantasy story, I absolutely love. And I loved the world building, and it felt believable to me, and that's what I love most about it. You know, it's talking about magic, but it's so mathematical and logical, and I love that because it makes it so believable, and I love the believableness of this book. So I really loved this, and I found it really easy to get into, and despite its size, I read it really quickly and felt like I was looking forward to reading it, and I'm glad that I finally got to it, because I think I probably could have put this off for much longer, purely because, you know, I just do get put off by big books a lot of the time, and I find that I pick them up and then I'm kind of itching to get on to the next one and the next one and the next one, and then because it's a big book, obviously it takes a lot longer, and sometimes I end up getting a bit frustrated, but I didn't have that with this at all. I just really enjoyed the experience of reading it, and I will definitely be reading the next one. So yes, I did really enjoy this one. Next up, we've got a book that's a little bit more my size, which is Marrow, and this is translated from the Chinese, and this is not what I expected it to be. It was such a surprise, but I loved it even more because of that. So this is a story about a mother who, she's kind of this real sort of dominant, fiery character, very blunt, and the writing in this in general was just so blunt, and I loved that about it. And it's basically about her 4 children who all have learning difficulties, and how she will just basically go to any lengths to marry these children off. And I just felt like I just kept getting shocked by the events that were happening, and there were so many what the fuck moments in here that I was just not expecting, and it's so not politically correct, and it because of that there was so much in here that just made it, there was part of me that found elements of it funny, yet I felt so uncomfortable at the same time, and I loved that about it. And I just found that the writing was very straightforward, yet some of the descriptions of the landscape were really beautiful, and that kind of made it all the more unsettling. So it is a really sort of unsettling novel, very strange little book, and it kept me on my toes and was just a huge surprise for me, and I loved it so much because of that. No one in this is particularly likeable, but I just love the whole sort of powerful, no shits given attitude that is depicted in this, so I did really enjoy this little one. Next up, Moonstone. So this is translated from the Icelandic, and I really like the cover of this. I like that the red stands out against the kind of backdrop here, and that does kind of feature, the red features in the novel as well, and I love book covers that kind of do tie into the actual story. And there was an element of me that was somewhat disappointed in this. In terms of its writing style, it was very sort of straightforward, and I did say that Maru was quite straightforward in its writing style, but I didn't feel bored at this at any point, whereas with Moonstone I have to be honest and say that I kind of did. But there's a lot in here that I did like, so I'm going to talk about that. So the story itself is following this character who's quite outwardly passive but inwardly quite profound, and it's set during the time in which the Spanish flu swept ashore in Iceland, and the depictions of this are really quite haunting yet so matter of fact, much like the character's sexual experiences with men. So he gets paid money to sleep with men, and you know, he's this teenage boy who also has this great love for cinema, and there's a lot of commentary in here as well about how cinema was not really a respected interest. It was kind of not looked at as a very positively. By the end of the book though, that's kind of changed, so I find that quite interesting to weave in here, and I find it interesting whenever a book focuses in on just like a story about one particular person, whilst there's kind of this bigger picture of history happening right behind it. And I like the blend of fact and fiction within this as well. I would have been more interested, I think, to learn more about the epidemic that was happening, but at the same time I like the level of separation you had from that. And the writing in itself was quite subtle, like I said, quite straightforward. It was very subtle, very silent, and very much like a silent film in itself. And I know I've kind of criticised it a little bit, but there was an element of it that kind of worked for me, because it did kind of produce that feeling of this is kind of like a silent film, yet it's talking about silent films, and I kind of like that link. I'd say overall I did enjoy this. I still don't really know what to rate it, because there was so much in here that I enjoyed. By the end of it I found it completely heartbreaking, and I was very surprised by the ending as well. There were also many references throughout this which will either add depth and meaning to your reading experience or leave you kind of a bit confused. I kind of enjoy them. Sometimes I don't like too many references, it kind of irritates me a bit. But I'd say overall I did enjoy this, and it just isn't necessarily as good as I was thinking it was going to be. Next up, Familiar Things, which is translated from the Korean, and this is set in the slums, or Flower Island as the locals call it, and it's about a mother and son that come to work and live here. And what happens is that there's these shifts each day where the rubbish gets dropped and the locals there have to sort through it. And I found the kind of world of the slums fascinating to learn about, and I really loved the fact that we hear the story mostly through a child's eyes. So there's Bug Eye, who makes friends with Bald Spot. First of all, I'd like to say that I just love names like this. You know, whenever there's names in books that really stand out, and the names themselves almost become a character within themselves. That was in this book, and I loved that. So there's even a character called Mole as well. So you've got Bug Eye, Bald Spot, Mole. Loved it. Anyway, it's largely told through their kind of perspective of living there, and I think that adds to the kind of fascination of the story. Despite the fact that, you know, obviously living there is really quite grim, and there's a lot of dramas and a lot of struggles, there's this real sort of authentic kind of homely feel, and I felt that even stronger when at one point Bug Eye and Bald Spot go out into the kind of real world, and there's something so alien about that real world, and something so distant and separate from it, but at the same time there's an appreciation for it. So it felt like overall it's an earnest commentary on waste, how much waste we produce as humans. It's also an earnest commentary on how much crap we just make to be bought and sold, but at the same time it's also a celebration of appreciating what you do have, what you do own. And you know, even though the slums wasn't this place of luxury, there was something so lovely about it as well. That's, like I said, that real sense of community. There's also magical realism in here, which I enjoyed, but I kind of wanted a little bit more of that. Similarly to Moonstone, the writing style isn't quite my thing, in that it's just very straightforward, but there was definitely elements in here that I enjoyed. I'd say overall I was also somewhat disappointed in this one, but I really like the setting, and I'd still really recommend it as a read to other people. Overall, this is a really human book celebrating the heart of its characters, and it's a real sort of celebration of those who are marginalised in society, and for that reason I find it extremely powerful and very poignant, and I enjoyed it. Next up, Beware of Pity by Stefan Zweig, and this is translated from the German. Now, I've read a couple of Stefan Zweig's books, which is exactly why I thought this is going to be a 5-star read for me. And I have to say, it's no chess. Chess I absolutely love, and I kind of thought I was going to like it just as much, if not more, for the sheer fact that this is the book that most people seem to know best. It seems to be the one that's kind of considered his best work. Well, from what I gather, that was the impression I had of this, and I have to say, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. Nevertheless, I still think this is an absolutely fantastic book, and I think it's really kind of, I'm probably being quite harsh on it. I think if I didn't go in with such high expectations, I probably would have loved it so much more, which is why expectations ruin books so often. It opens up in the present, where you meet this guy who is this army hero, and it then goes back to the past to see how he ended up becoming that. And the title of this book is so apt. I love it. Beware of Pity. It's not a direct translation, but I think it works so well for the book because it just tells you exactly what this book is about. It tells you the dangers of pity and where it can lead you to and the consequences of it. Now, I find that the premise of it is really quite simple. It's about, you know, this guy who asks this girl to dance, but she can't walk. She's disabled, and it's largely about this kind of faux pas that happens, and the whole story revolves around this. I find it interesting to kind of get inside the minds of how people perceive themselves and how they think they should behave and the right way of behaving, and your fears of how other people perceive you. There's a lot of that in here. There's a real sort of psychological examination of human experience, and I love that about it, and I find it really, really excellent. I do, however, think this would benefit from being a lot shorter. I think that Stefan Zweig is really best when it comes to novellas. I don't know if that's just because I personally love novellas, or whether that's because I think that, I mean, it's quite a simple story, and I think that it would work better if it was much shorter. Nevertheless, I love this, and if you like the Grand Budapest Hotel, that was loosely based on this one as Stefan Zweig's other book, The Post Office Girl, and it's a film that I love, and as soon as I started reading this, I got a real sense of that. So in terms of the tone of the Grand Budapest Hotel, I really felt that in here. I find his books quite, you know, there was a level of humour in here for me. But yeah, I did really enjoy this book, but like I said, my expectations probably ruined it to a certain extent. But yeah, that's that one. So these are the 5 books. I'm now going to decide what my rating for them is going to be. I'm going to tell you what my thoughts were during, after, and what I think I'm going to do them as now. The Name of the Wind, when I was reading it, I was 100% 5-star, 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 but in the back of my mind I was thinking, but it's probably a 4-star because I've got so many things to criticise within this, but I love it so much, therefore it's a 5-star. And I'm still kind of going back and forth, and I think if half stars was a thing, then it would be a 4.5 star. But I think I'm going to go for the full 5-star, meaning I got this one right. Fucking loved it. For Maru, interestingly, the whole time I was thinking 4-star, 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 and even after 4-star, but a week on, I was 100% thinking, I think that's a 5-star book, and especially because I was thinking, I probably prefer this over this, but that's because this is more my thing than this is. And this is where it got complicated in terms of the rating system, and it was all falling apart. And then I had to like figure this out, because I was like, well, if I give this 5-star and give this 4-star, that doesn't work because blah. So my way of thinking about it is more, I've got a favourite shelf on Goodreads. So I was thinking it's more about, would these books make my favourite shelves? And these two, yes, they're going to make my favourite shelves. For Stefan Zweig's Beware of Pity, I think a solid 4 stars. It could have been a 5-star. It may be one that I change to a 5-star in the future, but I think I'm going to have to do a 4-star for that one. So I wasn't totally right on that one. For these two, these were the two that I found the hardest. There was a lot in here to love, but there was a lot in here that I didn't love, and I think for both of them, they're going to have to be 3-star reads for me. They they could at moments sway into a 4-star, but I don't think anything ever above a 4-star. I think they're both solid 3 stars. So I got 2 out of 5 right. I don't think that's bad. Anyway, if you've read any of these, let me know your thoughts, and I'm probably going to do another 5-star prediction video because I've really enjoyed this. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you again in my next video. Bye. I don't like the size. fucking hell. I'm a novella girl. I'm a novella